When I moved to the paid version of ChatGPT, it wasn't really about the upgrade itself. It was about changing how I worked with it. I didn't want to just ask questions and get answers. I wanted it to think with me. And that means I had to be more intentional about how it showed up. So, what I'm sharing in this episode is how I worked with it. And my hope is that it sparks ideas for you and not just rules. So I outgrew the free version. It was helpful, but I kept running into limits. My momentum would break. I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to be able to follow an inspiration whenever it struck, and I needed space to do that. So if you ever felt that kind of limitation, you know what I mean. I didn't just upgrade and start typing. I actually went into the settings and told ChatGPT how I wanted it to respond. And I didn't go in asking to be challenged right away. At that point, I was just kind of looking for something that was supportive. I wanted to get clarity. I wanted structure. I wanted something that would think with me, but not just agree with me automatically, but also not push too hard. It wasn't fancy or complicated. I just went with how I learned, how I respond, and how I process information. Once that was in place, everything started to feel more aligned. The first week wasn't dramatic. I was asking similar kinds of questions, but the responses felt easier to work with, cleaner, more structured, and I didn't have to reorganize everything before I could use it. And that small thing made a big difference. And then I noticed when I gave it more context, the better it got. So I started pasting in my notes, my reflections, the actual frameworks that I use, things that I already tried. It wasn't just surface level type of things anymore. If you want depth, you have to feed it depth. One of the first areas I bought it in was with my relationship. I noticed that I had a pattern. When my husband would get anxious, or even when I thought he might get anxious, I would shift into managing mode. I'd smooth things over. I'd adjust how I talked or what I did. I would try to prevent tension before it started or reduce it after it started. And on the surface, that seemed supportive and it felt supportive. But underneath that, something else was happening. So instead of just describing it emotionally, I asked ChatGPT to help lay out what was happening step by step. What triggers it? What do I do? What do I say? What do I avoid? And seeing it mapped out made it very clear to me. It wasn't just about the anxiety, it was about how uncomfortable I am with tension. It was about me trying to keep everything calm at the expense of myself. Having the pattern reflected back at me so clearly was eye opening. I couldn't believe I didn't see it before. But just knowing the pattern didn't suddenly make me different or transform me. But it did s- start to shift. I noticed I wasn't rushing in as quickly to calm the waters. I could pause. I could stay with myself a little longer instead of automatically managing the situation. It would show up in small ways. I wasn't jumping in as fast. I wasn't adjusting myself right away. I noticed that I was feeling instead of bypassing and avoiding the feelings. And sometimes I actually stayed with the tension a little longer. What I've been noticing is that this process is changing me in small ways. I think more clearly when things are structured. I don't feel pressure to accept the first answer, whether it's from ChatGPT or from myself. I'm seeing that depth doesn't just happen, it comes from context, from slowing down, from staying with something a little longer than I normally would. And I'm learning that support doesn't have to mean comfort, it can gently stretch you. If you're experimenting with this, maybe start simple. How do you like information delivered? What tone helps you think clearly? And where in your life could a little more structure make things easier? In the next episode, I'll share what changed when I outgrew the gentle support and started asking for more pushback or more action.